You are sitting at your desk. It is 2:30 in the afternoon. The meeting just ended. The inbox is full again. And somewhere, from a drawer or a vending machine or a checkout counter, you reach for a KitKat. You snap it. That sound happens. And for about 45 seconds, the afternoon gets slightly more bearable. That moment, that specific 2:30 in the afternoon moment, is worth $2.8 billion a year. Not the chocolate, not the wafer, the moment. And understanding how a chocolate bar came to own that moment, in over 85 countries, across 90 years, is how you understand one of the most quietly brilliant business models ever built around a snack. Here is where it starts. 1935. A factory worker at Rowntree's in York, England drops a note in a suggestion box. He wants a snack he can carry in his lunchbox to work. Something that does not melt, something that fits in a pocket, something he can eat quickly before getting back to whatever he was doing. Rowntree's takes the idea, builds it into a chocolate-covered wafer bar, divided into 4 fingers that snap apart cleanly, and puts it on sale as Rowntree's Chocolate Crisp. 2 years later, they rename it KitKat. 23 years after that, in 1958, an advertising copywriter writes 5 words for a British television commercial. Have a break, have a KitKat. The commercial airs, and something unexpected happens. The line does not just sell chocolate. It claims a universal human experience. The break, the pause, the moment between one thing and the next. From that moment on, KitKat is not competing against other chocolate bars. It is competing for ownership of a feeling that every person on Earth has multiple times every day. That is a completely different business. And it has a completely different financial logic. So how does owning a moment translate into $2.8 billion in annual sales? Start with where KitKat appears. Not in the chocolate aisle, not on a shelf you have to look for. At the checkout counter, in the vending machine on the office floor, at the petrol station near the motorway, in the rack next to the cash register at the pharmacy, in the small display by the hospital cafeteria tills. KitKat does not wait for you to decide you want chocolate. It positions itself at the exact physical location and the exact moment in time when a break is most likely to happen. The mid-morning pause, the post-meeting exhale, the 2:30 slump, the moment before boarding a train. This is not distribution strategy. This is behavioral psychology converted into revenue. Nobody plans to buy a KitKat. The decision happens in seconds, triggered by the sight of the familiar red wrapper, at a moment when the brain is already predisposed toward a small reward. The purchase is made before rational thinking has time to intervene, and KitKat is there, precisely at those moments, in more locations than any competitor has managed to replicate consistently. Here is something that most people never think about. A vending machine operator purchases KitKat from a distributor at wholesale price and charges consumers a retail premium for the convenience of accessing it without having to visit a shop. Nestlé collects its margin at the wholesale level. The vending operator captures the convenience premium. And the consumer pays slightly more than they would at a supermarket, because at 2:30 in the afternoon, with a craving and no time to shop, the price difference is not the calculation being made. The break is. So Nestlé earns money from the impulse. The vending operator earns money from the convenience. And the consumer gets 45 seconds of relief. Everyone wins. And the transaction repeats billions of times a year, because the 2:30 moment never stops happening. But here is where the business becomes genuinely strange. In 1988, Nestlé acquired Rowntree's for approximately £2.5 billion. At the time, it was the largest takeover in the history of the confectionery industry. Nestlé paid that price for access to KitKat's distribution network, its brand equity, and its global market position. But the acquisition came with a complication that has never been resolved. Rowntree's had previously licensed the KitKat name to Hershey for the North American market. When Nestlé bought Rowntree's, Hershey's licensing agreement remained intact. So Nestlé acquired global rights to KitKat in every market, except the United States and Canada, which together represent one of the largest confectionery markets on Earth. Today, the same bar is made by 2 competing companies in different parts of the world. In the United States, Hershey manufactures KitKat from its factory in Hazleton, Pennsylvania, which it expanded with a $60 million investment specifically for KitKat production capacity. Every KitKat sold in North America generates revenue for Hershey. Nestlé earns nothing from those sales. The licensing agreement has never been unwound. which means Nestlé owns one of the world's most valuable chocolate brands globally, except in the market where the brand's English language slogan and cultural resonance should be strongest. So Nestlé builds its KitKat revenue everywhere else. And elsewhere is where something remarkable happened. In Japan, KitKat is not a chocolate bar. It is a good luck charm. When Nestlé launched KitKat in Japan in the 1970s, sales were unremarkable. The product was competing in a sophisticated confectionery market against deeply established local brands. And nothing about a British chocolate wafer suggested it would find a foothold, let alone dominate. Then Japanese consumers noticed something Nestlé's marketing team had not planned. The name KitKat sounds phonetically similar to the Japanese phrase kitokatsu, which translates loosely to "you will surely succeed or surely win." In Japan, university entrance exams carry enormous cultural weight, and the tradition of homage, bringing back regional gifts for family and colleagues, is deeply embedded in daily life. KitKat began to be given as a good luck gift from parents to students before exam season. Nestlé did not create this association. Consumers created it. But Nestlé recognized it, leaned into it completely, and built an entire parallel business around it. It partnered with Japan Post to sell KitKat bars in 20,000 post offices across the country, allowing customers to send KitKat as a mailed greeting. It introduced regional and seasonal flavors that functioned as homage, specific to the geography and culture of particular areas. Matcha green tea, sake, wasabi, strawberry cheesecake, baked cheese tart, sakura. Each new flavor gave consumers a reason to buy KitKat that had nothing to do with craving chocolate. A tourist visiting Kyoto brings back a Kyoto-exclusive matcha KitKat for colleagues at the office. That purchase is not an impulse. It is a cultural obligation. And cultural obligations command a very different price point than checkout counter impulses. By 2012, KitKat had become the #1 selling confectionery in Japan, overtaking Meiji chocolate, which had led the market for decades. More than 400 unique flavors have been introduced in the Japanese market since 2000. The KitKat Chocolatory, a physical store dedicated entirely to premium and custom KitKat experiences, opened in Tokyo and became a destination. A box of handcrafted KitKat from a Chocolatory store costs the equivalent of 20 to 30 times the per gram price of a standard bar. The ingredients are not 20 to 30 times more expensive. The experience, the exclusivity, the cultural meaning attached to the product is what is being sold. An experience carries margins that commodity snacks cannot approach. Japan did something more important than generate revenue. It showed Nestlé what KitKat actually is beneath the chocolate coating. It is not a product, it is a canvas. A familiar, trusted, universally recognizable format that can carry almost any flavor, any cultural meaning, any occasion, without losing the identity that makes people trust it in the first place. The snap remains the same, whether the bar costs $1 or $30, and the snap is the brand. Here is something counterintuitive about how a $1 vending machine bar and a $30 handcrafted gift box can exist under the same name without destroying the other. Normally, a luxury extension dilutes a mass-market product. Premium KitKat should make the checkout counter version feel cheap, but it does not, because both products share the mechanic that no competitor has managed to replicate. The finger snap. The specific tactile and auditory experience of breaking a KitKat is so deeply embedded in consumer memory that the brand identity holds across every price point, every flavor, every format. Whether you are snapping a standard milk chocolate bar bought from a vending machine in a London office or snapping a wasabi-flavored bar from a Kyoto gift shop, the sound and the feel are the same. That consistency is the thread that holds the entire brand architecture together, and it is not something a competitor can simply reverse engineer. This is why KitKat was valued at roughly €8 billion as a brand asset in 2025, not because of the chocolate, not because of the wafer, because of 90 years of accumulated meaning, habit, and moment ownership embedded in the name and the snap. But brand equity has a cost. And that cost is maintaining the quality that 90 years of consumer memory is anchored to. Here is where the business faces its most serious structural threat. Cocoa is a commodity. It is grown primarily in West Africa, where roughly 70% of the world's supply originates from a geographically concentrated region, subject to weather, disease, and political instability. Between 2022 and 2025, cocoa prices more than tripled, reaching over $10,000 per metric ton, driven by poor harvests caused by a combination of crop disease and drought. For a company whose most important product is made almost entirely of cocoa and sugar, that kind of price increase compresses margins in ways that are extremely difficult to manage without either raising retail prices or quietly reducing product quality. Nestlé chose to raise prices, announcing increases of roughly 7 to 8% in major markets. But price increases in impulse categories carry a specific risk that does not exist in planned purchase categories. A consumer who decided to buy a KitKat because it was there does not defend that purchase against price, increases the way a consumer who specifically sought out a product does. Impulse buyers are more price elastic than they appear because the decision to buy is also the decision to not skip. A KitKat that costs noticeably more than expected at a checkout counter does not get purchased less often by a single consumer. It gets skipped, in that moment, by millions of consumers who do not consciously register the decision as a price protest. They simply do not reach. So Nestlé has tried to solve the cocoa problem through sourcing rather than reformulation. The Nestlé Cocoa Plan is a long-term program through which the company works directly with cocoa farmers in West Africa to improve agricultural yields, reduce disease exposure, and build more stable supply relationships. KitKat has committed to sourcing 100% of its cocoa through the Income Accelerator program, a scheme that provides certified farmers with higher prices in exchange for sustainable growing practices. The stated rationale is ethical. The underlying financial rationale is supply security and margin predictability. A commodity supply chain that is concentrated, vulnerable, and volatile is a threat to the consistency that a brand worth 8 billion euros depends on. The Cocoa Plan is risk management dressed as corporate responsibility, and it doubles as a pricing tool. In high-income markets where sustainability certification increasingly influences purchase decisions, a KitKat that can credibly claim ethical sourcing commands a small but real premium. Sustainability in the right markets is not a cost. It is an additional reason to choose KitKat over an uncertified alternative at the same price point. Here is something that the competitive landscape confirms. The global confectionery market is controlled by a small number of very large companies. Nestlé, Mars, Mondelez, Hershey, and Ferrero compete intensely for the same checkout counter placements, the same vending machine contracts, the same purchase occasions. When cocoa prices rise, all of them face the same pressure simultaneously. When all of them raise prices, no single brand suffers a disproportionate market share disadvantage. The shared cost structure creates a form of collective pricing power that none of them could exercise alone. And within that structure, the brand with the broadest distribution, the deepest consumer habit, and the most consistent identity has the best chance of absorbing the price increase without losing the customer. Nestlé's scale gives KitKat an advantage that no smaller competitor can match. Its global purchasing volume gives it better pricing from cocoa suppliers than any single market chocolate brand. Its manufacturing network across multiple continents gives it production flexibility that reduces exposure to regional disruption. And its distribution relationships in over 190 countries give KitKat access to checkout counters, vending machines, petrol stations, and airport kiosks that a newer brand cannot enter regardless of product quality. Distribution is still the business. The chocolate is still the excuse. But here is the question that no financial analysis of KitKat's current revenues can fully answer. The break, as a cultural concept, was defined in an era of factory shifts, school timetables, and office hours. 15-minute pauses at predictable times of day. The slogan captured that world perfectly. The world has changed. Millions of workers now take breaks at desks, between video calls, scrolling phones in transit. The nature of the pause has shifted. Whether have a break, have a KitKat continues to land the same way. For a generation that experiences breaks differently, is a genuine strategic risk that sits beneath the double-digit growth numbers. KitKat's response has been the Japan model applied globally. More flavors, more formats, more occasions. Mini bars for portion-conscious snacking. Dark chocolate versions for health-oriented markets. Seasonal limited editions that create urgency and collectability. The Chocolatory experience for the premium gifting moment. Each new format is an attempt to find new breaks, new moments, new occasions where KitKat can claim ownership in the way the original slogan claimed ownership of the 2:30 afternoon pause. There is one more layer to this business that sits beneath all of the brand strategy and distribution economics and is rarely discussed outside of financial filings. KitKat generates revenue in two different corporate structures simultaneously. Nestlé earns from the global business outside North America through direct product sales, licensing income from regional manufacturing partners, and the margin embedded in the supply chain it controls. The revenue flows into Nestlé's Confectionery segment, which reported double-digit growth for KitKat through 2023 and 2024, even as overall Nestlé sales faced pressure from the broader consumer cost of living squeeze. But Hershey earns from North America through its own manufacturing and distribution. Hershey has called KitKat one of its most strategically important brands. Its $60 million factory expansion in Hazleton was a bet that North American KitKat demand would continue to grow faster than its existing production capacity could serve. And that bet has generally proven correct. KitKat has consistently ranked among the top-selling chocolate bars in the United States market for years. Here is something worth understanding about what this dual ownership structure means for consumers, without them ever knowing it. The KitKat you eat in New York and the KitKat you eat in London are not quite the same product. Hershey and Nestlé use different chocolate formulations. American KitKat has a flavor profile that differs subtly but noticeably from British or European KitKat. Consumers who have eaten both often describe the difference, sometimes preferring one, sometimes the other. Two companies making the same branded product with slightly different recipes in different parts of the world, each earning revenue from the association with the same name and the same mechanic, is a genuinely unusual business arrangement, and it has persisted for over 3 decades, because neither Nestlé nor Hershey has found terms on which they would both benefit from changing it. Here is something that reveals the long-term financial ambition embedded in the KitKat brand. Nestlé has announced that KitKat is among its highest priority brands for investment and growth through the late 20s. It is expanding the chocolatory concept to more markets. It is accelerating the development of regional flavors in markets beyond Japan. It is investing in KitKat-branded coffee and beverage products that extend the break occasion into categories adjacent to confectionery. And it is exploring KitKat formats designed specifically for the gifting and luxury occasion markets in regions where premium confectionery is growing fastest. Each of these moves follows the same underlying logic. The break occasion is not fixed. It expands. A KitKat coffee is a break. A KitKat gift box is a break elevated into a social gesture. A KitKat chocolatory experience is a break turned into a destination. Each extension adds revenue without diluting the core product, because each extension is anchored in the same emotional territory that the original 1958 slogan staked out. As long as the break remains the frame, almost anything can be sold inside it. But here's the tension that never fully resolves. Every extension of the brand adds complexity. More flavors require more supply chain management. More formats require more manufacturing flexibility. More markets require more localization. More premium products require more quality control. The simplicity that made the original KitKat work 1 bar, 4 fingers, snap and eat is harder to maintain as the brand expands in every direction simultaneously. And somewhere in all of that expansion is the risk that the brand becomes so many things to so many people that it stops being anything specific to anyone. KitKat has avoided that fate for 90 years by keeping one element absolutely constant through every variation: the snap, the 4 fingers. The specific tactile moment that has not changed since a factory worker in York put a note in a suggestion box in 1935. That constancy is what holds the entire expanding architecture together. And as long as that snap remains the same across every flavor and every format and every market and every price point, the brand has a center of gravity that prevents it from flying apart. So this is how KitKat actually makes money. It sells 5 billion bars annually across more than 85 countries by positioning itself not where people shop, but where people pause. It converts the universal human experience of the break into a purchase occasion and then occupies every physical location where that pause is most likely to happen. It charges a price premium justified not by the cost of the ingredients, but by 90 years of brand association and habitual trust. It runs a parallel premium business in markets like Japan, where cultural meaning attached to the product allows it to charge 20 to 30 times the commodity price for the same underlying snap. It manages commodity cost pressures through scale sourcing, supply chain investments, and sustainability programs that also serve as pricing tools in high-income markets. And it holds the entire architecture together through a single mechanical feature that no competitor has replicated across 90 years of trying. The snap that sounds the same, whether the bar costs $1 or $30. The next time you reach for a KitKat at a checkout counter or out of a vending machine at 2:30 in the afternoon, notice what you are actually paying for. Not chocolate, not wafer, not sugar. You are paying for the company of a feeling that has been waiting for you at that exact moment since 1958. So this is how KitKat actually makes money. It sells 5 billion bars annually across more than 85 countries by positioning itself not where people shop, but where people pause. It converts the universal human experience of the break into a purchase occasion and then occupies every physical location where that pause is most likely to happen. It charges a price premium justified not by the cost of the ingredients, but by 90 years of brand association and habitual trust. It runs a parallel premium business in markets like Japan, where cultural meaning attached to the product allows it to charge 20 to 30 times the commodity price for the same underlying snap. It manages commodity cost pressures through scale sourcing, supply chain investments, and sustainability programs that also serve as pricing tools in high-income markets. And it holds the entire architecture together through a single mechanical feature that no competitor has replicated across 90 years of trying. The snap that sounds the same, whether the bar costs $1 or $30. The next time you reach for a KitKat at a checkout counter or out of a vending machine at 2:30 in the afternoon, notice what you are actually paying for. Not chocolate, not wafer, not sugar. You are paying for the company of a feeling that has been waiting for you at that exact moment since 1958. That is not a snack. That is one of the most precisely engineered purchase occasions in the history of consumer goods, and it has been generating billions of dollars every year, one snap at a time, for 90 years.